name is Serena Dykman. I'm the writer, producer, and director of Nana. Nana is a feature documentary about my grandmother, Maryla Michalowski-Diamant, who was an Auschwitz survivor, but more importantly, she was an activist for tolerance. I decided to make this film. My grandmother passed away when I was really young, and I knew her story without really understanding it and really wanting to hear about it. And then I was in Paris and in Brussels, where I'm originally from, during the terrorist attacks. And for some reason, it made me open her memoir, which I had never read. And I read it in one go, and I suddenly realized who my grandmother was. I realized that she was more than a survivor, that she was more than a hero, realized that she was a real activist and fighter for tolerance. And it put a lot of joy in me, but at the same time, she's not here anymore, and she's not here to do the work that she tirelessly did by going back to Auschwitz countless times with students and journalists and government officials, and she used to go to schools and speak publicly all the time. And not only is she not here to do that job, but most survivors are gone or unfortunately about to be. And as a filmmaker and the granddaughter of my grandmother, I kind of felt like I had to make a film about her life, about her journey, but also about her work and her message of tolerance, and continue to do that as the third generation. We produced the film in New York, where I work. We shot it in Belgium and in Poland and in New York as well. I worked with my mother, so it's also, I call it a transgenerational documentary, because it also talks about the trauma that is passed on, as well as the responsibility of keeping to talk about it. We did a few test screenings in New York, and we got amazing feedback. It was great to see people from all origins and ethnicities and religions relate to the story, because it's not a film just about the Jewish people, it's a film about tolerance and about what can happen in a world without tolerance. So we've been sending it to quite a lot of festivals in the world, and we're still in talks and see where we're going to have our world premiere. And you can watch the trailer on filmfestivals.com. Nana is what I used to call my grandmother when I was a little girl. And as much as this film has a big and universal message and talks about a huge part of our world history, it's also a very personal film for both me and my mother. It really retraces her journey and the journey of my mother, and kind of me discovering everything that my grandmother lived and everything that she went through, and then the work that she did with it. While reading her memoir, I realized that my grandmother was Dr. Mengele's translator, obviously forced translator, and that's just one of the hundreds of survival stories that she had. She also met Himmler. She was in 3 different camps, starting with Auschwitz. She met my grandfather, who was a Catholic Polish resistant, a couple of days after the liberation, and they stayed together until the end. So I found out a lot of historical things, but I also found out a lot of personal family history through making this film. When I started making it, I had just read her memoirs, and I went to shoot the film in Poland and in Belgium. I interviewed a lot of people that knew my grandmother, and we went to Auschwitz, and we really physically retraced her journey. And then I went back to New York, and I started editing the film, and then people started finding out that I was making a film about my grandmother, and they started sending me archival footage of her, over 100 hours of archival footage of my grandmother, just recounting tirelessly her story in Auschwitz and all the foundations in every language, because she was quite the polyglot. So we ended up with a very different film than what we had set out to do, but I think a much more powerful film, because yes, it is my story of discovering my grandmother and continuing her message. It is my mom's story of how she lived in between the 2 generations, but it's more importantly my grandmother's story and her fight against intolerance, and the fact that a lot of the film is her talking with her amazing accent and incredible sense of humor, because even though it is quite a serious film, you will find yourself laughing because my grandmother was quite the comedian as well. So it was incredible to just find all that footage that I had no idea existed when I set out to do the film. Thank you.